Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and today we're going to be talking about a few things. One, I'm going to Chicago, so I'm very excited for that. I'm about to go on a little adventure, and then two, I also want to talk about some of the films that I have been picking up during these sales, because Black Friday, of course, and other sales that have happened. I've got a couple of things. I am saving up for Chicago. And then last, I'm going to be putting together All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 2. I've been watching a few discs, so I want to talk about those movies and talk more about the sets, because I really love this set. If you are not new here, you might notice this is all complete now. I got a label maker. I'm getting a little nerded out for what this looks like, this organization. But I know it looks a little different. Some whites, some greens, reds, and blues. I know, but I ran out of the different different colors for all the ones. So here we are. But before we jump into the titles that I have watched and the ones that I have picked up, I do want to cover a little, Thanksgiving week, I guess, recap for myself, and give a little bit of a thanks, I suppose, for different various things in my life. One, my parents. I want to say thank you both. You have been a big support for me over the last few weeks, especially with my sciatica and my cyst that I've been dealing with. You know that you've been helping me out on that. But besides that, I had a really good Thanksgiving with my family as well, and I'm also super proud of everyone who watches this. And it got me thinking, because I normally don't have like a Thanksgiving movie. I think of stuff like Babette's Feast or a food type of movie, but it wasn't really sitting with me this week as I was going through my day. But I pulled this out and I started thinking, I want to watch this because it brings back some nostalgia, and a little bit of my nostalgia is kicking in this week a little bit, and the things that I was thankful for, those memories that I was thankful for, and one of those things was Empire Records. And this is a movie, I actually like High Fidelity more, which is a little bit more personal, but I definitely wanted a movie that was similar enough in the vein. If anyone doesn't know, I used to work at a record store, CD Warehouse, here in Springfield, where I live, and that was a home away from home. I adore that place. And I also wrote a paper when I got my master's degree and talked about Hegel and the liminal space that happens within a place that you create and you stay and you inhabit. And that's a whole academic thing, and I'm not going to talk about that. But let's talk about Empire Records, the ultimate slacker movie. Movie that I really adore because it reminds me so much of the carefree spirit of that place, and also just the carefree spirit of the people that would come in and out, and the losers that would hang out there. And this movie just brought me back. So I watched this on Thanksgiving, and this is a movie that I just adore so much. And it doesn't really mean much. It just has some nostalgia to it, and then also just got me a big kick and a big smile on my face, thinking about my past and thinking about what I'm thankful for right now. So yeah, Empire Records, that's a little rant. So now let's jump over to the different section of this video where we talk about the movies that I picked up. So I'm going to start filming in this corner for the film Blu-ray hauls, like the things that I pick up, and I will cover some of the things that I've watched in the past, because there's a couple here that I have watched this year that I really enjoyed, and I'll talk about that. But yeah, this whole entire corner I really like showing off, and I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to be going to Chicago here shortly, which is a little insane here, first week of December. It's going to be pretty cold temperature, but I'm going on an adventure, and so I decided to put this little corner here. I'm going to start doing this as a theme to different things going on in my kind of week, I suppose. This one is going to be adventure, so I'm going to be putting some Ray Harryhausen films, some adventure films. There's Beastmaster. These are all me going on a journey. This is going to be a weird segue, but speaking of adventure, let's talk about a film that maybe is a little too close to home. Civil War. This is Alex Garland's latest film that came out this year. This movie shook me, I can tell you that much, especially near the end. Kirsten Dunst is phenomenal as a reporter who is reporting an actual civil war that is happening within the United States, which, like I said, it's a little too close to home because there are some sprinkles of reality within this film. But besides all that, let's just say that I think that Jesse Plemons, who is Kirsten Dunst's real husband, but also one of the other leading people in this film, is phenomenal. He's really scary and intense, and in a very intense scene that if you probably haven't seen it yet, I would definitely recommend just a little bit of a warning from that one. But yeah, this movie is really good. I am enjoying Alex Garland's work ever since I watched, 28 Days Later as his writing for Danny Boyle, all the way up to, something like Annihilation, which is one of my favorite films of all time, probably. But yeah, his science fiction is really cool. I got it on 4K, so I'm excited to watch this again. This is going to be a little bit nervous now that I know what's going on in the country. Next is another film that came out this year, a horror film that I watched a couple weeks back. It finally went streaming, and this actually got on sale, so I picked up the Blu-ray of Abigail, and this is a fantastic movie about a little girl and a team who is sent in to pretty much kidnap her and hold her for ransom for some reason. But there's some other things going on, some nefarious things. I'll just say, there may be some vampiric things going on. And this movie is really, really fun. It really knows its tone. It likes to go all over the place and kind of balls to the wall type of blood and gore, but at the same time has a lot of comedy elements to it. But it definitely knows its audience. I think this is a film that a lot of people are going to enjoy, even if you're a fan of either genre of horror or comedy. The combination of the two makes this a fun time. So watch Abigail. I'd highly recommend it. Next is a Hitchcock film, which I am very surprised that this took this long to get on Blu-ray, but it is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This is a comedy from Hitchcock, and I guess this came out in 1941. I was really close. But yeah, this has been remade into Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie from years ago, and that is a much different film. I think this is a screwball comedy of sorts. Like I said, it's been sorely missing in my collection for Hitchcock, and I've watched all of his films except for I think like 2 or 3, and so this is one of them. So I'm very excited to finally have this from Warner Archive. Next is the original miniseries for the book that was recently adapted this year into a television series that's really, really grand and really fantastic. I'm talking about James Cavell's Shogun. So this is the original miniseries, like I said, from the 80s. In fact, this came out, I think, in 1980. If I'm correct. Yeah, the 1980. And this is actually starring Richard Chamberlain, and we also have Toshiro Mifune in here. So a very legendary Japanese actor, and I am just really excited about this because I really enjoyed the new adaptation. I just need to read the book, to be honest, first. But I've heard this is a really fun adaptation of it, and also one of the events of the 80s, much like it was for 1990. I think stuff like this, or like Salem's Lot, were really big deals back in the day, and I love that like television kind of movies, I suppose, kind of came out like that, and we need something like that again here soon. But anyway, I'm excited to watch Shogun. Next is a film I know very little about, so you can, judge me in the comment section, but is one that has one of my favorite actors, and that's Javier Bardem, and this is in a Spanish film, The Good Boss. So this came out on Cohen Media Group, and I'm always a big fan of Cohen and their work. I think they put out a lot of contemporary work that's really not looked at too much, kind of like Janus Contemporaries does now. But yeah, I'm excited for this one. Like I said, it's a Spanish film from Fernando Leon de Arnada, and I'm just excited to watch this one. And I've heard it has a very great Bardem acting style in here, and I heard he just has a fun time with this one, so it looks really exciting. Has anyone seen this movie? I would love to know your thoughts down in the comment section. And next is a cult classic, one that I got from Eureka, and one that I've been wanting to watch for years because I've only seen the images from this particular film, but one that I'm so excited to finally have, and that is Tank Girl. And this looks fantastic. I haven't even opened this up yet, so let's do that on camera, right? But Tank Girl, this is a film that came out based on the comic book that came out in the late 80s, but here we go. Let's take that off right there. There is the film itself, and then there's the back. Wow, this just looks really fun. Poster girl for the apocalypse. Yeah, I've heard this is a very crazy post-apocalyptic kind of insane movie of a thing, but it's a cult classic. And then there's actually another cover, which I also really, really love for the booklet. But yeah, this smells great too because it's new plastic, of course. But yeah, I'm so excited to dive into this and kind of figure out more about this. This is very much like Mad Max or Furiosa, but like proto, that kind of stuff. Obviously, Mad Max came out before this. I don't know why I'm saying stuff like that, but things along those lines. If you're interested in that, that's what this looks like. But I'm gonna have a good time watching this when I get back from Chicago. All right, now let's jump back into the director's closet, and I'll see you soon. And we're back from some adventures over yonder, and now we're back to some more adventures in the All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 2 box set. So many of you know that I've been going through this box set as it came out a few weeks back, and I've been having a total blast because folk horror is one of my favorite subgenres of horror, or just, I guess, maybe just genres of film that I really like to watch. It is a subgenre of horror, so but I really adored the first set that came out with this, and it had so many amazing films within it, and I've been exploring that since then. And so from this point, there's actually 13 discs in this set. The last film journey I had, I talked about discs 1, 2, and 3, which had 6 films in total, and all of the various best special features that I watched. I actually watched a lot of the commentaries as well, because I really wanted to get engrossed into the mindset of the filmmakers, the people who are like watching the films themselves as like scholars or critiquers, and also just see the people who are making these creative decisions. It's really fun. Now let's talk about disc 4, Born of Fire. Look how trippy and amazing that looks. Well, this movie is a trip, akin to something like David Lynch, Ken Russell, Jodorowsky, something that is very visually horrifying but also bizarre, and you can't stop looking at it. This is the story about the jinn, which is in Arabic culture one of the mythical beings that lives on this plane, and really just kind of manifests itself in human meddling. But again, I'm not of this faith, so I don't really know too much about that, but I know of the several stories and the interpretations, and I really love this particular interpretation about this guy being summoned to Turkey. He's a legendary flutist, and he is summoned by a woman who is really, really big in his life, or at least he's beckoned to get to where she's at. And they go to this very legendary looking place, and a lot of really crazy stuff happens, and a lot of music too. It's got a really great soundtrack, but visually stunning film. I really love the surreal performances going on in the movie, and overall I definitely recommend people check this movie out. A 3.5 out of 5. It's got some really great special features with it as well, with audio commentaries from the director, different actors, and then also some historians who are looking at the jinn and Pakistani culture and things along those lines. It also has a special short film on here, one of the early short films, Tower of Silence, which is a really, really big one. I think you can watch that on YouTube, but it was like the first film that this filmmaker made, and they did a wonderful job. Both are recommended to watch. I definitely recommend watching Born of Fire. You can get this from this disc box set, but also I think you can get the UK version, which is from Indicator, I believe, that has this out. And now we're moving to disc 5, which has 2 films on it. I almost did 3 there for some reason, but it has Isle Island and Scales. And Isle Island is a South Korean horror film that I can't believe it was made around the time that it was made. And then we also have Scales, which is a Saudi Arabian film, a more contemporary one, which we'll talk about here in a second. But Isle Island, holy moly. I talked about surrealism with the last film, Born of Fire. Well, there's also some really bizarre, I guess, more Wicker Man-like qualities going on with Isle Island. So if you're a fan of that film, I definitely would recommend seeing that. But this is about an island that is really isolated away from the mainland and has their own customs and traditions. And this whole island is populated by only women. So there are some men that arrive, and you can probably tell some sacrificial stuff starts happening. But for the good of their culture and their community, which is a lot like Wicker Man, right? But in a different way. And it was also filmed in a very interesting time. I believe, I'm going to butcher this, so I'm just going to put it right here. But this time period is insane that this movie came out. And it passed the censors, too. There's some censorious, some very visual stuff going on in this film, especially near the end when you see some of the witchcraft cult-like rituals that are going on. It's insane. But, regardless of that, I think this is a terrific film. This is a 4 out of 5. This is a movie that is like a classic South Korean horror film of sorts that I don't think enough people know about. And this looks really, really fun. I don't know. It's bizarre. You may hate it. You may think it's not a 4 out of 5, and I completely understand that. But now let's move to the more contemporary film. I believe this came out in 2019. It is Scales, the Saudi Arabian film, actually directed by, let's see if I can get this correct, Shahad Amin, and it's produced by Rula Nasir. yeah, this movie is a black and white film about pretty much a culture that it has a a relationship with the sea itself, and there's, I guess, a story of where they give their first child to the sea, to particularly mermaids who will take them and take that first child. I think maybe girls specifically, but I could be wrong on that. But it's a very visual film. It's just a gorgeous film. It has a lot of very close-up, intimate shots of the earth, but also some really wide shots that kind of cover the foreground and the background, and seeing that and lingering on that space is really important for this particular film. And also the waves themselves and the seeing of what this mermaid looks like. It is akin to something like The Lighthouse in its black and white cinematography, and you also get to see a mermaid in The Lighthouse, but it's a very different interpretation of that. And then also seeing the relationship with our main character within this story, who has accidentally at the very beginning of the film initially was sacrificed to the mermaids, but at the last second her father pulled her away, leaving her a scale on her foot, and slowly she is turning into a mermaid. And so that's kind of the premise of the story. So, but regardless, it is a gorgeous film. It's shot, like I said, really wonderfully. I definitely recommend people check this movie out. A 3.5 out of 5. It is a little long-winded, I will say. So there is warning on that, but I think it's worth your time. And then there's also some Telling Our Stories, which is a conversation with the producer, the director, and Kayla Janice, who put this all together. And there's a short film on here, Kindle. And Kindle actually was probably my favorite short story I've seen so far. It's one of my favorite short stories. Very, very good. It's also a merfolk kind of horror story, and I'll leave it at that. But it's a fun one, and it's more contemporary as well. Yeah, definitely check that one out. It's really good. And the last film that I watched is on disc 6, and this is actually the first film on this particular disc. The other one is in the player itself, but it is Bakaneko, A Vengeful Spirit, which this movie came out in the late 60s, which I think this story I had been told maybe 30 or 40 times, or at least of a cat, vengeful spirit, that takes the form of the last person, I guess, it lapped its blood when the spirit died. That all sounds really crazy, but you'll see what I'm talking about when you watch this movie. But it is about a vengeful cat spirit taking out their vengeance on the ones who have wronged them. Usually it is played by a woman, because usually it's a woman who has been murdered in a very nefarious way, and this cat seeks vengeance, and it's a really beautiful kind of vengeful story. But this movie is really crazy for this time period. I've said that a couple times, I'm sure, but this is visually very, very stunning. It's shot in black and white. There's a really great set design, and there's also this puddle that where the deed happens, where she drowns, and so does the cat, and then that cat comes back as the spirit who plagues the person who drowned her and that family. And that general protagonist is actually a feudal lord who also has some swordplay. So there's a lot of really cool swordplay in this film as well, that makes it also really intriguing. And the way it's shot as well is very well choreographed, and then also at the same time very stylistic. And speaking of styles, this horror film, which is also an action film, it has a lot of styles in various ways. But the practical makeup effect on here is also really cool, and the in-camera work that's kind of casting the spirits, or like the eyes of the cat itself as it's possessing the spirit, is really special. And I also just really enjoyed a lot of the blood that came from this movie, because it's really, really visceral, I would say. So this movie is maybe the best of the bunch for me, but I would say it's a 4 out of 5. It's one that I highly, highly recommend. This box has been so much fun so far. Cannot wait to get to Nongnek, which is the next film in here. I think it's a Thai film, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, what have you been watching for the week? I'll be back from Chicago here shortly, and when that happens, I'll show you, I'm sure, what I picked up and some other things, and tell more about stories like that. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like, comment down below, share, hit the notification bell, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.